The coffee shop was nearly full when the woman in the wheelchair rolled through the door. She moved slowly, carefully navigating between tables, her hands working the wheels with practiced precision. The left side of her face was scarred, the kind of scars that don't fade with time. Burns, old ones that had healed but never really disappeared. She chose a table near the window and positioned herself quietly. A young barista approached, order pad in hand, but before she could speak, a voice rang out from behind the counter. "We don't have wheelchair access at that table." The shift supervisor, a man in his early 30s with perfectly styled hair and an expensive watch, stepped forward. "You'll need to move to the back." The woman looked up at him, her brown eyes steady. "I'm fine here," she said quietly. "I don't need anything special." "It's a fire code issue," he insisted, though several other customers were sitting closer to the emergency exit than she was. "I can't have you blocking the aisle." The barista, barely 20 years old, glanced between them uncertainly. "She's not really blocking anything," she ventured. "I'll decide what's blocking my cafe," the supervisor snapped. He turned back to the woman. "You need to move, or I'll have to ask you to leave." The woman's hands rested on the arms of her wheelchair. She didn't move. She didn't argue. She simply sat there, and in her stillness was something unshakable. A man at a nearby table set down his newspaper. He was older, maybe 70, wearing a baseball cap with an anchor embroidered on it. "Leave her alone," he said simply. The supervisor whirled around. "Excuse me?" "I said leave her alone. She's not bothering anyone. This is my establishment. I have the right to maintain order." "Order?" The old man stood up slowly, his joints stiff. "She's sitting quietly, waiting for coffee." "What's disorderly about that?" By now other customers were watching. A mother with 2 young children, a group of college students with their laptops, a businessman checking his phone. All of them had stopped what they were doing. The supervisor's face reddened. "Look, I don't need trouble, but I have other customers to think about." "What trouble?" a woman's voice called out. She was sitting 3 tables away, wearing scrubs with a hospital ID badge still clipped to her pocket. "She's just sitting there." "It's uncomfortable," the supervisor said, lowering his voice but not enough. "Some people don't want to. Look at that while they're trying to enjoy their morning." The silence that followed was absolute. The woman in the wheelchair closed her eyes briefly, and for a moment everyone could see the weight of every thoughtless word, every turned head, every uncomfortable stare she had endured. Then a teenager, no more than 17, stood up from the corner table where he'd been doing homework. His voice cracked slightly as he spoke. "Do you know what those scars are from?" The supervisor looked annoyed. "I don't." "She's a firefighter," the boy said, his voice gaining strength. "My dad works at the same station. That's Captain Elena Rodriguez. She's been on the force for 15 years. He pulled out his phone, scrolling quickly, then held it up to show a news article. The headline read, "Local firefighter saves 3 children, suffers critical burns." 2 years ago, the boy continued, there was a fire at the elementary school on Maple Street. The ceiling was coming down. Most of the firefighters pulled back because it wasn't safe. But there were 3 kids trapped in a classroom. People were leaning in now, listening. The businessman had put his phone away. The mother had pulled her children closer, listening intently. Captain Rodriguez went in anyway, the boy said. She found the kids in a supply closet where they'd been hiding. The ceiling collapsed while she was getting them out. The beam that fell pinned her legs and set her jacket on fire. He looked at the supervisor, and there were tears in his young eyes. She stayed conscious long enough to push those kids toward the other firefighters. Then she passed out from the pain. They said she had third-degree burns over 40% of her body. The woman in the scrubs stood up and walked over to the captain's table. Without saying a word, she pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. "I was the ER nurse on duty that night," she said quietly. "I'll never forget it. You coded twice on the table. We almost lost you." Captain Rodriguez looked at her, recognition dawning. "St. Mary's," she said softly. The nurse nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You kept asking about the children. Even when you were barely conscious, that's all you wanted to know. If they were okay." Were they? Asked one of the college students, and the whole coffee shop seemed to hold its breath. They were fine, the nurse said. Not a scratch on them. They're in high school now. They come to the hospital every year on the anniversary to visit the staff who helped save Captain Rodriguez. They call her their guardian angel. The old man with the navy cap walked over and stood beside the captain's wheelchair. He didn't say anything. He just stood there at attention, his back straight despite his years. Then the businessman joined him. Then the mother with her children. Then the college students. One by one, every customer in the coffee shop came and stood around Elena Rodriguez, creating a circle of silent support. The supervisor stood behind the counter alone, his face drained of color. Captain Rodriguez looked around at the people surrounding her, and for the first time her composure cracked. A single tear rolled down the scarred side of her face. "Was just trying to get coffee," she said, her voice breaking. "I just wanted to sit by the window because it reminds me of the station. We had windows just like these." The young barista, the one who had first approached to take her order, stepped around from behind the counter. She was crying openly now. "What would you like?" she asked. "It's on me. It's on the house. Please just tell me what you want." "Just black coffee," the captain said. "That's all I came for." The barista nodded and hurried to prepare it, and when she returned, her hands were shaking so badly that the cup rattled in the saucer. She set it down carefully in front of the captain. "Thank you," Elena Rodriguez said simply. The supervisor finally found his voice. "I didn't know." "No." The old Navy veteran cut him off. "You didn't know because you didn't care to know. You saw a wheelchair and scars, and you made a decision about who deserved to be here." He leaned forward slightly, and his voice carried the weight of his own years of service. "I fought in Vietnam. I saw men die. I came home to people who spit on my uniform. I know what it's like to be judged for serving." He gestured toward the captain. "She didn't go to war, but she fought a battle that day. She has the wounds to prove it, and you treated her like she was something to be hidden away." The supervisor opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "I'm sorry," he finally managed. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," the mother spoke up, her children pressed against her sides. "You absolutely meant it. You thought she would make your customers uncomfortable. Well, you know what makes me uncomfortable? Knowing that someone who saved lives is treated this way." She knelt down beside the wheelchair at eye level with the captain. "Thank you," she said. "I have 3 children. The thought that someone like you exists, someone who would run toward danger to save them." Her voice broke. "Thank you." The captain reached out and took the woman's hand. "I didn't do it for thanks," she said. "I did it because that's the job." "That's more than a job," the businessman said. He'd been quiet until now, but he stepped forward, holding his phone. "I've been recording for the last 5 minutes. I'm posting this online. People need to know what happened here." The supervisor's face went white. "You can't do that. This is a private—" "I absolutely can," the man said firmly. "And I absolutely will." Captain Rodriguez shook her head. "Don't," she said quietly. "Please. I don't want this to be a big thing. I just wanted coffee." The businessman looked at her for a long moment, then nodded and put his phone away. "Out of respect for you," he said. Not for him, but the young barista pulled out her own phone. "I'm sorry, Captain," she said, "but I work here. I see how people get treated every day. Maybe it's time people knew."